Hello, welcome to Dean Park and part 2 of the layout tour. If you've not yet seen part 1, you might want to click on the pop-out banner at the top of the screen now. However, in part 2 I'm going to focus on the depot side and the fourth end of the layout, which is yet scenically incomplete, as well as look at my storage yard workings. If you like the video, please click on the like icon. If you've not yet done so, please click on that subscribe icon. And also, if you wish to get in touch, please leave a comment in the comment section below. This little diorama here, the cutting area, is mainly scratch built. The retaining walls and portals are all scratch built by me. We've got a relay box platform there from the Scale Model Scenery range. It's actually got wires coming from the bottom of it into the T-piece of the cable trunking there, but they're black and you can't see them, but they actually have got wires hanging down from the bottom of the relay box platform. The relay boxes are Will's kits as previous. One's been opened up here with some detail, and we've got some line sign workers in attendance. Flipping the camera around, you'll see the twin portal here. One side is a passing loop, which is long enough to take a full length HST, and I've obviously started to build into the depot at this end with the scratch built depot office. That ladder there, the access ladder there from Scale Model Sceneries, nice little kit there, obviously allows the workman access to trackside. And all the foliage and bushes tie in from the wall to the back scene as best that I can. You've got some relay boxes down here as well, and they've been weathered and graffitied. I really like these little shunt signals. They're from CR Signals, and this is a 1980s version, and it goes from two whites or red. Modern ones have a different light configuration, but I can flick the configuration of it depending on which way the turnouts are set to allow the train to proceed or not, as the case may be. Moving into the depot, we've got this office block, totally designed and made by me, so it's a complete scratch build. It's double skinned. The outer skin is 2mm MDF with a southeastern fine cast brick embossed plastic. The inner skin is the interior walls, and the windows were designed for me by York Model Making, so they've been cut and supplied. The roof again has been designed by me. I'll show you an angle from above in the next clip to give you a bit more detail on that, but the interiors are fully detailed. So if I've got two light settings actually. For example, at night time, maybe a couple office areas are lit, I've got that setting, so you might see a couple office lights go on there. I'll do night shots later on, so don't worry about that. And then I've got the full office lit there. It's populated with workers, depot workers, as well as administration staff and managers and all that kind of stuff. And the blinds were designed for me at the time by Justin at Scale Model Scenery, and they're an absolute superb product, because not only do they block out the interior when it's not lit, but when you light it you can actually see through into the detail as well to a certain degree. So it's absolutely spot on, one of his finest. Looking at the roof, it's a flat roof structure, pretty typical for buildings of this period, 60s through to the 80s. Flat roofs, they were just thrown up with little thought about future drainage issues and water leaking into the building below. It is what it is. The roof's made up in two parts. We've got the main section here, which is got a kind of tarred chip effect on top of the felt. How I did that was I spray glued the area, sprinkled on the finest sand that I could find, which was out of a sand pit, obviously dry, and then once the glue had set, I just shook off the excess, primed, and then painted it to seal it all in position. This is an edge all the way around, which is fitted onto the edge of the actual main roof, and I've just painted that to look like a slightly different grey to the tarred chips. The roof comes off to allow me access to the upper floors. technically I should be able to lift the building up in its entirety to access the bottom floors. However, with the lighting, it really posed a big issue, a big headache for me to wire it all in whilst in situ. There are two main holes going through the baseboard below with lots of wires. I think there's 13 or 14 LEDs in the building in total, and being on top of a main line underneath, the wiring and the position of the wiring feeding through, yeah, was quite a challenge. I've learnt from doing interiors on future builds, so it's a lot easier to access the entire interior without removing roofs and stuff. But hey, overall, I'm not intending on taking it anywhere, and I think it looks the part, especially around the car park. Moving into the car park and the fuel storage area. The fuel storage tanks are Nightwing kit, and so are all the pipe work, intricate pipe work that I've fitted in here and out the front. That's all Nightwing. Moving further along still, we've got this boiler house. The chimney is a Scenecraft item which fits absolutely perfectly in with the building, and again it was a scratch build by me. The windows running along the front and the large door were supplied by Steve at Railway Laser Line, so he did a fantastic job on that for me, and I've fitted some frosted glass glazing right the way along the top, and it goes round the corners to a certain degree as well. I've given it a subtle weathering with staining down the brick and dirt grime getting thrown up by the passing trains, but being such a low speed line, the amount of grime getting thrown up by the trains would be minimal. The building is lit. I'll switch lights on now. You shouldn't see much of a difference there, because at the end of the day, interior lighting is to light the interior of a building, not the world round about it. Being from the 80s, early 90s, it was probably sodium lights that they used inside these things, or pretty weak bulbs, so it's not going to be a massive white light coming out the windows. Alright, that's not what we're looking for here. It's not the 21st century with bright LEDs. How I achieved that was I put quite a large resistor on the surface mount LEDs, and then I took a clear yellow Tamiya and painted the LEDs. It's an acrylic. LEDs, remember, run cold, so it doesn't matter if you can actually paint over them. It's paint used for remote control cars where you're painting over indicators and stuff, and it really gives that kind of sodium appearance, almost like a street light from the 1980s, okay? For those of you who are old enough to remember that. As I move the camera around, you'll see this Northlight low relief factory building there, which serves the depot, maybe a workshop. And we've got the 2-lane Bachmann Scenecraft engine shed here, which is fully lit. It's got twin inspection pits, which are also lit, and it's got loads of interior details. Mainly, I have to say, from Scale Model Scenery and the Bachmann Scenecraft range, okay, of depot equipment. The hard standing is scratch built by me. It was 2 layers of 2mm MDF. You can say, why didn't I just use 4? Well, the top level of MDF goes right to the rail sides, whereas the bottom layer of MDF navigates round the side of the sleeper here, so it's slightly narrower, so it sits nice and flush. The rails just sit high enough above the actual hard standing so I can clean them. You don't want them sticking miles up, because then obviously it becomes unrealistic. It's been subtly weathered using rail match sleeper grime, roof dirt, oil leakings, and just generally dirty greys. Before I move further along the depot, I'll just cover the ballasting of the whole depot area. What I've used is Woodland Scenics Grey Blend Fine grade. Okay, so it's the finest you can get. I've used medium grade on the main lines, but I wanted a finer ballast here because there's no ballast shoulder, it's flatter, there's no need for a ballast shoulder, and the Loco's only going 5-10 miles an hour tops anyway. And then I looked at photographs from Haymarket, Eastfield and Inverness to get inspiration as to the colour of the ballast and also the weathering and how it weathered. I could add some more oil spills and more random oil leakings in here, which I've not ruled out for future, but I've used quite a lot of different tones to get this effect. Those of you who've watched my channel for a while will know that I'm into adding small details to a scene, really to bring it to life. Whether it be a point heater, a speed restriction sign, a shunt signal, or even a discarded pallet, I like adding the small details that really, they make it more interesting to look at the layout. Moving to the single lane shed, this is from the Bachmann Scenecraft range, and it's on a longer hard standing area, so a Loco could either sit in there, or even like a class 26, 27 could sit there on the hard standing and still be worked on. I've got an inspection platform there, that's from 10 Commandments. Most depots will have a local wash of some description. I got my particular model from the Bachmann Scenecraft range. We've obviously got the main wash here, and we've got a kind of rinse, a water spray rinse here. Next to that, we've got this fenced off area. This orange fencing comes from the Scale Model Sceneries range. I've got 3 engineers in there with some piping and ballast bags, obviously doing a bit of drainage work. Around about the era that I'm modelling, they use the orange kind of plasticky protective fencing. Nowadays that would be blue, but I have got photo evidence that they used the orange in the 1980s at Haymarket, I think actually when they were installing a new local wash. This stepped low relief structure is a Northlight workshop or factory, and it is there to serve the depot. The 2-storey protrudes further out from the back scene in the single storey, and it's maybe some workshops, offices and storage rooms, whereas the single storey is pure workshops, and there's metalwork desks, shelving, welding material and stuff, and you can actually see it through the windows when the lights are on. I've got a shutter door there, obviously for access to the depot. This is quite a complex build because you've got the stepped relief of the 2 sections, you've got the 2 levels on heights, you've got the angle of the roof, you've got the Northlight windows. There's a lot going on. Okay, I'm not going to bore you by taking you through every single part, but I've got Scale Model Scenery tiles here, I've put guttering in there. There's 4 different types of window designed in laser cut for me. I've got the upper ones here, the ground floor ones. I've got one style for this Northlight and a different style for the single storey Northlight windows. Okay. The interiors in this one are slightly different from the depot office. In fact, I could lift this building off and in theory the interiors will be there, they'll stay if you like. And I got a design from, or that idea from Everard Junction actually, when he built an office, so you can actually access the interiors a bit better. Again, fully lit, that always adds complexities with wiring. I've got 5 LEDs here, I think. In fact, more than that. I've got 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs, and then 2 or 3 along the single storey there, and it's all fed down. I'll put a link to the video at the top of the screen to when I was talking about this with the actual construction and how I went about the lighting. Quite a complex affair. It exits the building in 2 areas, but there's a main line underneath, so I had to make sure that the wires were out of the way of that. So again, a very complex kind of logistical build, if nothing else. But I really am happy with how it's all turned out. A lot of work, about 3 to 4 months of design and building this one. I've put the lights on so you can hopefully see some of the interior detail. We've got a chap here at a desk doing some metal work. There's some shelving in there with materials like pipe work, sheets of metal, wood, and then storage up the stairs there, maybe copious amounts of cardboard boxes on shelving, and we've got kind of more workmen and that in there as well. It's supposed to be quite dull, especially in obviously daylight. When I switch the lights off, you've got a better idea, because it's through dirty glazing. I actually dirtied and weathered the glazing, so what I did was I sprayed it very lightly with a light passing of a kind of dirty dark grey. It was Humble 32, and maybe some sleeper grime in there, and then I took a wet or a dampened cloth with thinners and streaked it down, so take off a lot of the paint to give that streaked, dirty, grimy appearance. The window frames themselves are even weathered. I primed them in grey, sprayed them in white or an off-white, and then actually took a small Albion Alloys file to take off some of the white to reveal the metal frames, if you like, coming through from the paintwork. These factories wouldn't have their windows painted from when they were put up to when they were demolished, so I'm trying to give that effect. This is actually one of my favourite scenes in the depot. We've got some kind of storage tank there, we've got some oil drums, pile of sleepers, even a lever off one of the point levers, general rubbish lying about, set of ladders, fencing which is from the Wills range, which has been painted and weathered down using some weathering powders through and just brushed on with a kind of large round brush. And then I've got the Budley Eye, weeds, trees and that kind of stuff at the back. Again, just showing the boundary of the depot. You might even be able to see a wee standpipe there as well. Just very briefly, I'll look at this Nightwing fueling area here. I've added some little extra details myself, and obviously it's been weathered, oil staining and stuff to match in with the surrounding area. The track here has been given the Hatton's oil spill kit, right sludge and grime in between, and even out with the sleeper areas. Again, if you watch my depot build series, you'll see all these things take shape as and when they happened. This low relief warehouse was a scratch build by me, and I made it on a 4mm MDF subframe. We've got some metal style cladding there with the brickwork, and then we've got some corrugation on the roof there. So the corrugated sheets on the roof are slightly different from that of the actual cladding on the front. We've got a small extension here, again in keeping with the actual building, and it's got a flat roof, and I've even engraved little joins there in the felt sheeting. Some details round about it: discarded sleepers, oil drums, a wee barrier there to stop the chap running out of the fire exit straight into a moving train. It's got a depot lamp there, and these are actually scattered all the way along the back of the depot, and when it's lit you'll see the effect that it has. Just looking a bit closer at the depot detail, I've even got a little gutter in there which has been weathered, obviously with the dirty water streaking down the roof. The roof's been weathered. I've got these are 0.25mm kind of capping on the front, which I've creased with a knife, folded round and then fixed. The downpipe here actually has an S-bend in it, so because the brick doesn't stick out as far as the metal cladding, I've had to S-bend it so that it attaches to both. From this view you'll see the major modern loco shed that I've got on the depot. This is a railway laser lines kit, and I did a 2-part build video on that, so I'll put the links to that at the top of the screen. I've switched the lights on inside the depot so you can maybe get a sense of some of the detail that I've put inside. It's jam-packed with scale model sceneries and Bachmann Scenecraft depot accessories, okay? But the kit from standard comes really well designed and interior detailed. We've got breeze block walls, we've got fully detailed truss work. It really is a superb kit. You might want to check out the Railway Laser Lines website. The link is in the description below. You can see I've got 2 doors there. They're both at slightly varying heights of openness, if you like. We've got the traditional yellow and black horizontal stripes. They've been weathered, as has the depot building itself and the area around about it. As I move along towards the end of the depot, we've got this Nightwing large fueling area with gantry, fully assembled and weathered with staining and streaking. We've also got the gravel and all details in there with pipe work. Made this little kind of step here. I'll take it away and you can see it a bit closer. Made it up from parts of a scale model scenery step from one of their relay platform kits actually. Alright, so that's how I came across that. They're different heights at both sides of the step, obviously because one's going into an already gravelled area which is slightly higher than the ground outside. So I had to factor all that in as well to get it sit properly. We've even got a little phone there as well, emergency phone, next to the depot lamp. These buffer stops here, they're just Pico ones painted up and weathered, fit to the track, and we've got the single red light buffer stops there from Express Models. As you can see, all the area's been weathered, the grime and stuff on top of the ballast. Right, I'll move on to what's happening next at Dean Park, or what's happening in the future. Well, you can see down at the front of the depot here, there is a big gap. There's nothing here. It's not been scenically complete. That will be arched retaining walls all the way along, and you'll see that green signal in the distance there, and I'll discuss what's coming after that in the next clip. But there will be a retaining wall from the S&T girder bridge section all the way along to past that green light. Then I'll do scenic material along the front here and at the bottom of the wall, and that'll tie this in. And then the upper section here needs to be electrified with OHLE, okay, and that'll come in next, and I've got some ideas about what I'm doing there as well. So really, to finish off this side of the layout, to finish off the depot area at the front with the retaining walls, is a target for into the springtime, early summer of this year. In the previous clip I mentioned retaining wall along the front of the depot. It'll come to here. Then there'll be a twin tunnel portal here, and I'll cover all this section here, okay? So you're only going to see the raised section, and it'll be more of a focal point, I feel, if I do that, because there's a lot of track work here just now. All the points are automated anyway, so I don't have to see them to know that they've been changed. My LEDs on my control panel tell me that. And because it'll be raised, I can still access the track to recover trains, or to clean it, or to maintain it to a certain degree, okay? So the raised section continues all the way around here. There'll be a single portal there, a double portal there, raised section in front here, and then retaining wall on the back to the other two tunnels that take you under the town scene. That'll allow you to look into the actual tracks in a kind of Princess Street Gardens style. But I say this is all plans just now. I'm not one to change my mind easily, just ask my wife, but this is kind of what's in my head just now. Back in the autumn I announced that I was doing another scratch build here, and this one's a large factory, alright, and that's just a mock-up of it, just gives you the kind of outline of what it will look like. There'll be another structure next to it as well, and this will be fenced off. It's based on a linoleum factory from Robert Nairn Linoleum, and that'll just tie in with the kind of edge of this industrial area at the right hand side of your screen. I'm working on that scratch build just now, or the scratch builds, so hopefully I'll be looking at completion of those within the next month. Right, the final corner now. This is the town, or the town area anyway, where the two scale scene houses are. That will be a housing estate, not a modern housing estate, more of a council housing estate. I've got some scratch builds in my head for making several buildings that look very similar, you know, that you'd find in maybe a housing scheme, maybe some high-rise or higher-rise flats at the back there, just to give the impression of height. The cutting itself, a very shallow cutting, although this area here is lower than the back one. Again, kind of some banking, maybe some rocky outcrops within the banking as well, working its way around to the right hand side of the shot, where you're then getting onto the station side of the layout, which you can probably just see there, the grass at the bottom right hand side. That's where we basically come out to the tunnels at the station. This area here will be more of a business district, maybe some office blocks and that kind of thing. I felt that tied in better with the station than just another housing estate, another generic, you know, cul-de-sac with some houses. I want to make it different from both sides of the rails. Looking down the depot side of the layout, you can really see the progress I've made in the last 3 years. If I go back to my videos late 17, early 2018, I'm still working on retaining walls and stuff around at the east end of the layout. I hadn't done the signal and telecommunications, none of the retaining wall cutting sections down this side of the layout. There was no scratch builds, the depot was just a bare baseboard. So really I have worked quite tirelessly actually to get to this point. I'm not one for speeding through it. I like to try and do jobs right the first time, and especially with my scratch builds, I like to get them right, so they do take me a little bit of time. Hopefully by the next time I do a layout tour, there's going to be a lot of visual progress and scenic work done on the west end of the layout, which obviously is my last side of the layout to do. How long is it going to take me? I'm not going to rush, but maybe 2 to 3 years. Obviously a lot of scratch builds in this particular build. At this end with the town scene and the industrial scene, that can't be rushed. These take time. Here I've got my storage yard. Now the storage yard has access to the layout at both ends. The side you're looking at now, round the corner to the left, has access to the lower part of the layout, and it'll take the line round to the station. Okay, any train can get from any line of the layout into the storage yard, right? So it's fully accessible through a selection of turnouts. Moving round to the right hand side, we've got all the trains parked up. You'll see I've got an HST parked there. That's in one of the two through lines that I have, and the line just to the right of the HST is an empty through line, and I try and keep one empty so that I can access both levels of the layout for a train going through the storage yard. Okay, so it's kind of like a massive added loop for the trains. Where the Class 60 is sitting just now, and just you'll see the end of a Mark 1 sitting down the bottom of the screen. They're in large passing loops, and they can hold up to 8 or 9 Mark 2s or Mark 1 coaches with loco. The main through lines can hold up to a 7-car HST without any problems, or an 8-car HST, but the HST power car just overhangs one of the turnouts there. There's a limit to the space I could actually afford when I was designing this. It's determined by the space in the house, obviously. You'll notice there as well I've got CCTV cameras. They're linked to the monitors at my Equus control centre, and I can access all the turnouts through my control panels that are also down at that part of the layout. So I use the cameras to find out where the trains are, activate all the turnouts without having to crawl under here all the time to sort them out. Looking at the middle section of the storage yard, you'll see all these turnouts here. They lead to the dead end sidings, and I can fit full rakes of coaches and wagon stock in there as well. A loco can access these no problem from any end of the storage yard by doing a bit of shunting back and forth to collect its rake of rolling stock. Looking at this end of the storage yard, you've got the sidings where the BBAs and the box vans are sitting, and the track curves round to the right hand side. You'll notice there's 3 tracks on the curve there. The closest one is a siding, and the middle and the back one, they're the main access routes, and they go into one turnout, and then obviously a single rail goes up the incline. So this is the end that accesses the upper section, whereas the other end was the lower section access. Well, that's it for the layout tour of Dean Park. I hope you've enjoyed parts 1 and indeed part 2. If you have any questions or anything you've seen on the layout, please do get in touch by posting a comment on one of the 2 videos, and I'll get back to you. All that remains for me to say is a massive thank you to everyone who tunes in and watches my videos and keeps up to date with my progress here at Dean Park. It really is humbling to know that so many people are interested in me building a layout and playing trains.